we have 6 minutes for questions. Or if you have, oh wow, we have a lot of questions. Let's start with you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm from Denmark, and I'm here because of my friend. I'm not a Christian. I don't like you are many of the us. And I'm immigrant, but I have been in Copenhagen many years. And we were interesting about it, and I'm thankful for leaving Denmark. But my question is, like, it really interesting, and I agree with you a lot with what you said. I really agree, and I also think I'm gonna I hope to work with immigrants when I finish with my studies. But the thing is, we know, like you said, the people, those immigrants, like I'm in Denmark because my family will have money, we will come to Denmark. So actually many people who move to other countries, they're not the real one we should, because those who, it's my thought, but it's, I'm having this question. Those who should stay in the countries and build the countries, those who had money and strong, they're the one who moving the country, first of all. The second is, so it means that the poor ones is those who struggle. And we are seeing now, like, from the immigrants from West Africa, it's not because of war, it's because of poor. So what we can do, like, they all can come to Europe, like they all can come to Sweden, they all can, those who coming here, and those who can come here, they all can. We can all, like, let all people move to Denmark or Europe. But what should then we do? It's my question. Like, I don't know if you get it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So it's basically you're raising the issue of brain drain. That many people who are moving from poor countries to rich countries are the ones with good educations that are privileged in some way or another, and then the country lacks the skills that they have. And that's a relevant issue, and I think it must be dealt with. I don't think it can be dealt with deportations, because that's not a good tool for doing that. But I think that it can be dealt with more aid, and also more incentives for people, also from Western countries, through aid, to actually remain in those countries, to invest in developing countries even more. So, yeah, but thank you for raising the issue. Again, if you would solve it with forcing people to go back to the countries, then you may risk, as I mentioned, to also deport people who are genuinely actually fleeing from persecution. And I also think that fleeing from poverty is a legitimate reason to move to another country. Even if I don't think it should be labeled as being a refugee, because it's important that we still keep that term intact. I think that's a very legitimate reason. That's why many people, for example, move from Romania to come here to Sweden, which I'm involved with helping. So thank you. Yes?
Isn't the elephant in the room that there is an equality in this world? And when we talk about refugees coming from war, and the problem is that there is they come from an area of the world that's really poor. Are they moving into our part of the world for economical reasons? But the problem really is, as I see it, we don't talk about that this equality is part of the problem and not just a symptom, or it's a symptom and not the issue. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes. And I also think that inequality, it brings so many problems. It brings, and inequality is, of course, the root of the difference between poverty and wealth, but I would also say it's a root of many environmental problems. And now in the preparations for the Great Climate Summit, many talk about climate justice, that the problem is caused by rich countries, and the poor countries are paying the price. So I definitely think so. I hope, and I'm not sure of this, but I hope that inequality will be brought up in the global discussions now with the new development goals. There are some organizations that have been pointing to this quite a lot. For example, Oxfam released a report quite recently pointing to that the 80 richest people in the world have the same wealth as the 3.5 billion poorest. And I agree with you. I also think that the church needs to talk about this, because I think the Bible is pretty clear. You know, John the Baptist says that the one who has two clothing should give to the one who has none. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 8 verse 14 that the purpose of giving to the poor is that it should be equal for all. So I think we need a more discussion about equality, just as you say. Yes?
You talk theory here. Could you share a little bit from your life the reality of what this means for you?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, as I said, I started to become an asylum activist when I heard about Pastor Sean being deported to Congo, and then I've personally been involved trying to stop deportation primarily to Iraq, and that was before people talked about Iraq and ISIS in this way. But we knew that terrorists were persecuting Christians in Iraq. So I personally tried to block a bus that went out from Ashta, but I didn't succeed. I was too little. It was hard. Yeah, I had some friends with me also. But yeah, so I've been personally involved, and then I've been a lot personally involved with immigrants from Romania, specifically helping these economic immigrants, basically. And you know, I could go on for days, and we don't have time. But basically, my activism for this is started in biblical revelation, and when my eyes were open for the situation in the world, I knew I had to do something. More question? Okay, you.
In the story about the Samaritan,
Yes.
it doesn't say there whether he was a Samaritan or a Jew. He was on his way from Jerusalem towards Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the point is not whether he was a Samaritan or a Jew, but that he was good.
Exactly.
And he was good,
Yeah.
even though he was a Samaritan,
Yeah.
from the Jewish point.
Yeah.
But because the Jewish, they didn't think he was good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
So you can be good, whether you come from Australia or Sweden or Ethiopia or from Syria.
definitely. Yeah,
You have to think, this person is good
exactly.
first,
Exactly.
and then you can decide whether he's not good or not.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yes, more questions? Yep.
Why do you think Mattias Karlsson of the Swedish Democrats uses the Bible to state these different opinions?
Yeah, he did say that he's not a theologian and he's not even a believer. So the reason was primarily to come up with some form of theology, especially for the Sweden Democrats' involvement in church politics. Because as you may know, the Church of Sweden is a very strange church run by politicians, and the Sweden Democrats have been in there for over 10 years. So that was the primary purpose. He says that the purpose is to show why their ideology has as much biblical grounds as those arguing to receive refugees. But since he's not a Christian, he's not very good at it. He's basically just Googling Bible verses and brings up stuff. And he's talking about, he's contradicting himself quite a lot of time. So, yeah, it's a fun read. More questions? Yes?
I think the Bible is pretty clear on the subject, and thank you for that. It's very informative. And of course, I want to practice and have the same point of view as the Bible, of course, because I want to live like Jesus and the way he wants me to live. And therefore, in general, of course, I agree. In general, before I came here, my opinion is that everybody is welcome in Denmark where I live. But what I have a great problem with is the Islamization of my country. And the argumentation is that, it's only a minority, but you see in other countries, in England and France, there's whole communities taken over by Muslims. So I think we underestimate when it comes to the Muslim religion. Some say it's peaceful. I think it's obvious that it isn't, but there are many peaceful Muslims. I have no doubt about that. I know a few. What my issue is that recently in Denmark we had one who has taken part in a terror plot, and he lost his Danish citizenship and being thrown out of the country. To be honest, maybe I have to repent of that, but at the moment I think it's right to do that because he is a threat. But of course I want to conform to the biblical point of view. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, thank you. I think deportation does not solve Islamization. I mean, again, I don't see the Great Commission as a command to take over a certain territory and then defend that territory against other faiths using deportation. So basically, a person is a Muslim no matter where he is or she, and a person is a terrorist no matter where he or she is. So a problem, we've had this discussion recently in Sweden as well about deporting terrorists, and why, you know, it's an understandable reaction, but it doesn't solve the problem, because then there can be terrorism somewhere else. You know, the only really solution to that is imprisonment, in my opinion. So what I mean is that evangelism is really something that we should invest more in, obviously. I really think that the church needs to move out on the streets more and be a part of the local communities even more, being more visible and so on, because we're not very successful at evangelism at the moment, and we need to do that. And that, I think, is really the only solution to Islamization, because that's what really changes people's minds, no matter where they are. So in a way, if we have a population growth of Muslims in Yemen, or if we have it in the UK, it doesn't really, it doesn't really matter. The problem is that people are lost, and there is a problem with Islamic violence and so on, and I think that needs to be solved with other instruments than just moving a person from one place to another, especially with the dangers of also moving people that are actually victims of the same values, because most of the victims of ISIS are Muslims. Yes?
You must remember that not all immigrants are Muslims.
Yeah.
There are quite a lot of others too.
Yeah.
But there's a challenge too with that, because when you talk about racism, it's very often the white people against the immigrants. But the most racism I have come across is between immigrant groups. I don't know if that's a part of, I think, what could we as Christians do about that? I think that's an area where we also should work.
Yeah, as you may have noticed, I haven't mentioned racism during this presentation because it's a stepping stone. People react a lot to that. But I think that, of course, everyone unfortunately can be a racist, and that's of course also when it comes to immigrants. But there is of course also a structural racism, which also is a part of this. And I don't have time to dive into that, but I think there's a reason why we have free migration within Europe, but then put on these high borders when it comes to people from developing countries. I think that there's still a structure that has plagued European civilization for so long, and that is still there. And of course, it's really visible when it comes to employment. For example, I've just read an article about Somalis having a really, really hard time of finding jobs in Sweden, and so on. So yeah, racism is always a problem, and the Christian response is always equal: to love everyone, and to preach the gospel, and to treat everyone as equal, and yeah, to love and share and help and do good things, and oppose these ideologies that try to differentiate between people of different ethnicities.
Yeah.
All right, if you have more questions, you can come to me individually, but thank you for the